country after country and people's revolution after people's revolution for a long time, years and years and years and years and years. And now what he's been doing, or just a fraction of it, is starting to seep into the mainstream. But the mainstream reporting of what he's up to has, again, not had the context of what is really happening. His manipulations have been reported as coming from him. It's all down to him. It's not. Because in the bigger picture, he may be a billionaire and he may be a master manipulator on the level that he operates. But in terms of the bigger picture, he's still just a gopher. Now, what's brought Soros once again to public attention, not least in Britain this week, has been the revelation that he has handed over about £700,000. In fact, since he's added another 100,000, so that's £800,000, and that will be the tip of the iceberg. He's handed this money over to groups that are campaigning to stop Brexit and Britain's withdrawal from the European Union. And this is not just coming from Soros. The hidden hand, which has its hand up the sock puppet of Soros, absolutely does not want the UK to leave the European Union. The idea is to absorb more and more countries into the EU so they can be centrally controlled by a handful of faceless bureaucrats. The last thing this hidden hand wants is Britain leaving and showing that it can be done, because lots of other peoples of Europe would like to do the same. So when Soros comes out in the wake of headlines like "Fury over billionaires plot to sabotage Brexit," and he talks about the fact that he's doing it, Soros hits back over toxic attacks on his pledge to stop Brexit. He's doing it because he cares about the UK and he cares about Europe. I doubt Soros cares about much except his own agenda. And the evidence points to that, as I'll come to. This funding of anti-Brexit organisations is being done as part of a vast network gathering all the time to either stop Brexit altogether or to so dilute it that it can't be called Brexit at all, with the EU bureaucracy continuing to dictate events in Britain. And what Soros is doing has to be seen in that wider context. It's not just coming from him. And, you know, you can see the extraordinary levels of bias in what is called the political class. The political class being, it doesn't matter what party you're in, you're pushing the same agenda. In the sense that we are hearing ludicrous, without evidence, claims that Russia manipulated the Brexit referendum that voted out. And that's a massive problem, even though they've got no evidence. It's a massive problem. Oh, the Russians, it's the Russians. But this American billionaire putting in so far what we know, £800,000 to try to stop Brexit, that's okay. That's not a problem. That's not someone from another country interfering in the political system and the wishes of people in another country. And this is how the bias works. But, you know, like I say, you've got to see Soros in the wider context, because his funding of anti-Brexit organisations is another tip of the iceberg. Once again, I've been exposing him in the books for such a long time for the work of his front network, one of them, which is known as the Open Society Foundations. He has just handed over recently another $18 billion to the Open Society Foundations. And therefore, that's $18 billion worth of ongoing manipulation of other people's countries and other people's lives. Soros's networks and what are called NGOs, non-governmental organizations, Soros fronts, have been involved in the manipulation of so-called people's revolutions year after year after year, like the Orange Revolution in Ukraine in 2004, the Rose Revolution in Georgia, the second Ukraine revolution that was nothing more than a US coup on Ukraine, putting in their puppet Poroshenko. Again and again, you see so-called spontaneous people's revolutions actually being stimulated and created and organized and funded by Soros organizations through the Open Society Foundations. And as I've again exposed in the books, and others have too, the Soros Open Society network was fundamentally involved in the creation of the fake Arab Spring and those people's revolutions that weren't. You see, if you keep invading countries openly, militarily, like the invasion of Iraq, then eventually people go, hold on a minute, we're invading someone else, what's going on? So what you do is you manipulate the people through your assets that start it all, and start the wave, start the agitation. I've quoted in my last two books US military documents that actually describe this very process of what I'm describing now, of starting people's revolutions to remove regimes you want over and over again. And so Soros claims that he's doing it because he wants democracy. It's the last thing he wants. And he is also painted and promoted as someone who is like not part of the establishment, bit of a maverick. Yeah, right. As I've again documented so many times, an organization in America, the Project for the New American Century, known as the neocons or neoconservatives, which are dominated by dual US-Israeli citizens, had a list of countries in the Middle East they wanted to regime change, and they revealed those countries in a document in September 2000. Won't go into all that again, I've done it many times. So we're asked to believe that Soros is a maverick working on his own, when the Soros Open Society Foundations and their manipulation of these Arab Spring people's revolutions were the trigger in Libya, in Syria, etc., to attempt to remove the very target regimes listed by the neocon Project for the New American Century in September 2000. This is a coincidence? Of course not. It's all coordinated. And in my latest book, Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told, I go into detail in how the open society foundations of Soros are fundamentally involved, and have been from the start, in the vast movement of peoples into Europe that has become known as the migrant crisis. He's doing something similar as well, as I show in the book, in the United States. So the idea that this guy is operating alone from his own decision making is absolutely ridiculous when you do the research. And the stories this week about his funding of anti-Brexit groups has to be seen in this wider context. Now, something else that's come out this week, extremely relevant and central to the Soros story, is this report about the revelations of a man called Professor Frank Furedi. And the headline in this story is Professor Claims Soros Missionaries Bragged About Toppling Governments in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Because this Soros network of organizations and foundations is global. It's everywhere. And more people are starting to see that as the veil lifts. So you've had the Hungarian government, country where Soros was born, vehemently exposing and challenging his manipulation of events, politics, etc., through his NGOs in Hungary. In fact, I was in Hungary last year speaking, and you see bus stops and poster boards all over the place with Soros's face on and words exposing what he's doing in Hungary. Through the Balkans, more people are creating anti-Soros organizations to expose what he's doing. I say again, this EU story has to be seen from this perspective. Anyway, this is very relevant from Frank Furedi. He's a man, actually, I quote in the new book, because he has written his own book about the takeover of colleges and universities by the politically correct mafia, so-called progressives, which, as I'll come to in a second, are also connected to George Soros. Anyway, let's come to this story. Author and sociologist Frank Furedi claims globalist activists working for billionaire financier George Soros bragged about toppling governments at a private lunch he attended. A former professor of sociology at the University of Kent in Canterbury, Furedi recounted his experience with the globalists' missionaries in an article for the Telegraph newspaper, having been prompted by the revelations about Soros's efforts to bring down the British government and trigger another EU referendum. Furedi said, Soros believes that if the people voted the wrong way, he is entitled to thwart decisions made by them. Soros does not believe in the legitimacy of borders nor in the authority of national electorates. I've been writing this for years and years and years. Consequently, he feels entitled to influence and, if possible, direct the political destiny of societies all over the world. The hidden hand doing that through him, as well as many others. Faridi said his own encounter with the Soros operation took place in the 87-year-old's native Hungary in 2013 at an open society youth exchange event, which brought together so-called civil society activists from across the globe. Then, of course, they go back and do Soros's bidding in their own country. Faridi says, during a lunch at a plush Budapest hotel, I encountered the full force of the arrogant ethos promoted by the Soros network of organizations. At my table, I listened to Dutch, American, British, Ukrainian, and Hungarian representatives of Soros NGOs boast about their achievements. Some claim that they played a major role in the Arab Spring in Egypt. Others voice their pride in their contribution to the democratization, US coup, in the Ukraine. Some bragged about their influence in preparing the ground for the overthrow of Gaddafi in Libya, all of which has been in my books for years. I sat quietly, he said, and felt uncomfortable with a group of people who so casually assumed that they had the right to play God throughout the world. And the story goes on. Foreign intervention has changed the North African country of Libya into a failed state where jihadists are at large, black Africans are sold openly in slave markets, and criminal people smugglers coin a handsome profit ferrying illegal migrants into Europe, often with the assistance of NGOs linked to Soros. Exactly, again, what I've been exposing. Faridi, who like Soros has a Hungarian Jewish background, took aim at defenders of the convicted insider trader who accuse his critics of anti-Semitism. This is the cry. Every time that someone who is Jewish, like Soros, is exposed for manipulation, then it's not because he's manipulating to the detriment of society, which he is, quite blatantly and provably, but it's because he's Jewish, and therefore any criticism is anti-Semitism. Do you know what I think is disgusting racism? When you use race to stop legitimate investigation into your activities. And as Faridi said, I am appalled by baiting critics of Soros as anti-Jewish, saying that the cause of fighting anti-Semitism is ill-served by such opportunistic use of the term. That is exactly the point I'm making. The academic, quote, lost most of his Hungarian Jewish family in the Holocaust, while Soros himself survived the calamity by posing as a Hungarian official's Christian godson, accompanying him on his rounds confiscating property from less well-connected Jews. Now, one major other area that, and it's so fundamental to current events, that this Soros network funds massively, are organizations that have become known as progressive, actually regressive, but that's what they call themselves, progressive. This is the mentality behind political correctness, behind the fascism of dictating what people can do and say and think and have an opinion about. It's the mentality that's taken over and hijacked what used to be called the old left. Organizations galore in the United States, Europe, that push this progressive agenda, which is nothing more than, well, call it fascism, call it communism, don't matter. Centralized tyranny, dictating everything, destruction of privacy, destruction of freedom of speech. Organization after organization, stunning numbers of them, are funded by the Soros organization and networks. And therefore, wherever you look in terms of current events, the Soros fingerprints will be there somewhere. And the funding of this progressive mafia is designed to create divide and rule, which is what has happened in America. Divide and rule, which is what has happened in Europe, not least through the mass migration of people, which has caused such upheaval. And the progressives stay silent on Soros. Well, it's where the money's coming from, a lot of it. We've had massive demonstrations in Washington, D.C. I think one of them was called the Democracy Spring, appropriately, where they were demonstrating against billionaires' involvement in politics and manipulating politics. And the central organizations that organized that demonstration are funded by Soros. And this idea that he's some kind of caring philanthropist that supports the causes of the progressives and the left can be summed up in this quote from him. He said, "I am basically there to make money. I cannot and do not look at the social consequences of what I do." And he cares about people and cares about the issues promoted by the left and so-called progressives. Are you having a frickin' laugh? And then again, in 1992, Soros bet against the UK pound sterling to the cost to the UK Treasury of £3.4 billion lost, which could have been spent on other things because of his betting against the pound. And he himself, as a result of that, is estimated to have made around $1 billion in a matter of hours. Yeah. He cares about people and their lives, and he cares about democracy. Now, I mentioned there, when I was talking about Frank Furedi, that Soros, when he was in Nazi-occupied Hungary, posed as a Christian and helped to confiscate property from fellow Jews under the Nazi regime. Now, in a an interview for the US 60 Minutes program, Soros was asked about that, and on the davidicke.com posting of this video, I'll put the video that I'm talking about so you can see it. He was asked about confiscating or helping to confiscate the property of fellow Jews while posing as a Christian. And he was asked the question, was it difficult? And his reply was, not at all. Repeating again, not at all. I think most of us would have found that anything but not at all difficult. So we have this idea given to us by the mainstream media now that Soros is coming to light in terms of what he's been doing. And the kind of theme can be summed up in this headline, God complex of the man who can't stop meddling with other countries' affairs. Well, maybe he has, and maybe he can't. But like I say, it doesn't stop with him. This global network that I call the hidden hand controls global finance. It can make stock markets go up or down at will by moving its trillions and trillions of dollars around the markets to make it go up or make it go down. And if you know the market's going down, then you get out of that which is going to fall. If you know the market's going up, you get into that which you know is going up. And one of the great tricks that this hidden hand uses, and its many, many gophers, who often become very, very rich as a result of it, serve the system, serve the hidden hand, and you get very well rewarded. One of the tricks is that you get out of that which you know is coming down because the hidden hand's going to make it so. And then it falls, the stocks fall. And then when you know the stocks are as low as they're going to go, you buy back in. And then more manipulation by the hidden hand of the global economy, and boom, the stocks start rising in value again, and you not only make an absolute fortune, your control has increased because now you own far more than before. This is a trick that's been played again and again and again. The idea the stock market goes up and down by accident, by random chances, it's childlike in its naivety. But those that make vast amounts of money thanks to the support of the hidden hand, that doesn't come as a gift. It comes with strings attached. And those strings say that yes, you're going to make vast amounts of money. You're going to become a multi-billionaire. But a great chunk of that money has to be invested back into projects that advance the agenda of their hidden hand. For instance, look at the Rockefeller foundations over the years and what they funded. The Rockefeller foundations are basically the blueprint of how this works. And it comes with another bonus that you can give this money away to hidden hand projects while claiming it's philanthropy, and you can get tax relief on it. Everyone's a winner, except the people. And if you look, for instance, at the funding and what is funded by the Bill Gates Foundation, It's a wish list of the hidden hand. Look at what Soros funds, and it's a wish list of the hidden hand. This is how it works, and this is the context that the events of this week in relation to Soros and the anti-Brexit organisations has to be seen. They seem so powerful, these people. And on one level they are at people below them. And they seem so rich and all their billions. But these people, in the bigger picture, are really just gophers. Rich gophers, yes, but just gophers. And woe betide if they ever think they're really in charge and go against what their hidden hand wants. Their hidden hand gives, but the hidden hand could equally well take away, and they know it. So the rabbit hole is extraordinarily deep. It's why I've spent so far nearly 30 years going down it and continue to do so. And the real point of power and decision making is way, way beyond people like Soros. But through Soros and those like him, you have an access point where you can enter the network and then dig deeper and deeper into it.